I am Lequita Brooks, your social impact speaker and strategist. Welcome to Social Impact Sundays at 6, where we have massive social impact that leads to massive income. And today we have Racheal on the social work movement segment. Listen, Racheal is a social worker that heals the community, and also she is a private practice owner. Man, Racheal has some amazing goals, aspirations, things that she's doing in her community, because she's like, you know what? People in my community don't feel safe, and I want to help those individuals who might not be able to afford to pay, $150 or $200 per session. So welcome.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I'm so on fire um, to serve and to be in the helping field. It means so much to me from literally the bottom of my heart because this is a field that is of passion and compassionate. You have to be compassionate to the people that you service in because everybody got a story. Everybody has a journey. And just to encourage and empower people during that journey is just the most amazing feeling to have. For people to come back years later or months later and say, you helped me, it just makes me feel good. It's a feel good feeling that you have impacted those that need you the most, you know. So yes, thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome. And listen, you kick-started our morning like, girl, I feel so overjoyed. I feel so full. So I just want to celebrate you for getting your licensed clinical social work license. And
Thank you so much. Thank you.
like, tell us more about that journey, because there's some other social worker out here who is like, you know what, I am struggling. I desire to get my LCSW, but things just aren't lining up. Things aren't working out. What would you say to them to encourage them in this particular second on being able to just persevere, push through, and just keep at it until you get your LCSW?
So I'm gonna say this because I really believe this with the bottom of my heart. It's not your timing, it's God's divine timing. Your season is going to be your season. Don't let up. You know what your passion is. You know what your goals are. I started getting a bachelor's degree in 2004. At that time, I had a daughter. And when I walked across that stage, she walked across that stage too, because they told me that I couldn't do it. They told me, oh, you have a baby. You need to go ahead and sit down and figure out how you're going to survive and work. Wait a minute now, but that's not what God told me. He said, no, 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 pack your. I literally had a conversation with him. I said, what you want me to do, God? Because I was working at UPS, packing trucks, at night. Like I was living in a space that I knew that was not for me. That puzzle piece was not fitting for what he had got, that what he told me was for me. He said, now get up and go back to school. And when I tell you, I made it happen. And I took my daughter and I went back to school with my child. I found out about family housing. I found out the financial things that were available to me because I was a parent. I found out about all the things that I had access to and nobody told me about. So now I use those things to teach other young women who have babies and say, hey, just because you have a baby doesn't mean it's over for you. So that was the kickstart of my journey. So fast forward, I got married. I had 3 other children. And I said, okay, this is not enough. God's still telling me this is not enough. So I went in to get my master's degree from Loyola University in Chicago as a full-time student, not a part-time student. I'm talking about dropped it all, driving Ubers, okay, working part-time, making it do what it do. My daughter was graduating, the same daughter was graduating high school when I got my master's degree. So we both graduated in 2018 together. Continuing on with my journey. Okay, now that I have this master's degree, it's opened up more doors, more doors. So I got a job working at hospital systems. And I've been at that job for 5 years, literally not long after I got my master's degree. And then I wound up getting my license in social work. And then I took the test for my license clinical social work. And then they changed the laws in Illinois that, okay, and I missed my test when I first took it by 2 points. So very disheartening, very, very disheartening. The anxiety around the testing it was so strong for me because I know it. I know I've been in this field for 20 something years doing the good work for the people. Not only am I just doing the good work in my work career, I do it on my social part, you know what I'm saying? Within my sorority, I do so much service. With my children, I make sure they provide service and they give back to the community. So, it's so many, this is my life. It's just not a job. This is who I am. And so, you know, that being said, when I finally got to this point when I was able to obtain my license clinical, which just happened a few days ago, I'm saying the fullness of where I could go. And I just thank God for his guidance and his grace, because now I have to figure out where we're going with this, Racheal. You have all these wonderful ideas, but I know for a fact I want to service my people and making sure that they get the help inside of them, because it has to start with one person. When we change how you feel on the inside about you, then it changes how you treat people on the outside. And then that becomes contagious, because energy is transferable. So if I come in this space and I have the real bad, sad, upset tone or attitude, or something's going on with me and it's coming out on the outside, either I have somebody who's gonna feed into that or somebody that's gonna be the opposite of that. And that'll influence who you are on the inside. So I always try to bring my good energy, especially with the clients I deal with. I'm a care coordinator. So I have a caseload of over 100 people. So when I come into these homes and when I see my people, I have to bring them some good vibes of energy, because they're suffering physically. They have, a lot of them have mental health issues. A lot of them don't know how they're gonna pay their light bill the next month. And I just have to give them some good energy, because I'll either I'm gonna feed into you or you're gonna feed into me. And I want you to get all this goodness. I want it all for you. And so that's one of the things that I do when I at first initially meet people, and just continue on, because guess what? That builds a trust, because it shows that I care about how you feel. And so it's so major to me, just to give some people some light and some love, because and right now, our society, the city I live in, is so dark. It's a cloud. But I want to bring a little light to people's lives, because that little light, the old song, this little light of mine, you gotta let it shine, because guess what? That flame gonna get bigger, it's gonna get brighter, and it influences every part of your life. So I'm just looking forward to being able to be of service to my community. And and you're right, everybody can't afford $150 a session. I want to be able to be a service that somebody can come and say, Miss Fuery, I want to talk to you. I want to be able to start something so I can begin my healing journey, because our people have been hurt for generations. Generational hurt. And we got to break that, so people can be successful in whatever they decide to do with their life, that they have the confidence, they have the ability to say, I believe in me. And I feel that because I had to do it for myself. I had to believe in myself. I had to God put it in me, say, oh no, this is not going to be your life. You're not going to be what people say you're going to be. You're going to be what I said you're going to be. And so that same energy, that same desire, I want to pour that into my community and the people that I am influential to. So that is just something, that's the basis of who I am and what I want to do in my community in this field. So yeah. Woo. I'm just saying.
You have said a lot, and you are truly a light. You are a light to the people that's closest to you. You are a light to your community. You are a light to the people that don't even know that they need you, that you're going to be a blessing to and for as you continue along this journey. And you've just touched on so many things. You've touched on your spirituality. You talked about leaning into what God says, who you are and whose you are, and actually moving forward, walking that purpose-driven, life, not listening to what they say, but really knowing who you are, and basically taking that and saying, you know what, regardless if I have a child or not, I'm pushing forward. God told me that this is who I am, this is what I'm meant to do, and I'm going to continue to just push forward regardless of what they say. And even I know earlier you talked about the trauma that a lot of people in your community experience, and being able to support them through grants. So if you were Burger King and you could have things your way right now, what would be some of those agencies that you might partner with, or programs that you would implement in your community if funding was not an option?
So I've always said that I wanted to either work in the school system, not actually in the schools, but to be a partner with the school system to provide in-home therapy, not only for the children, but for the families, because our children are suffering. They are suffering. The pandemic, had a mental effect on them. After the pandemic, we had so many kids who didn't know where their next meal was going to come from. They wonder where, all these kid boys come from. These kids are suffering. And, when they don't have self love, there's no way they can love and respect somebody else. It has to come, you have to take care of you first. And so, one of the things that I want to do is probably be a partner with Chicago Public School Systems as a group of therapists to tackle some of that, because every behavior that happens in school is not because, oh, the kid is bad, or they just don't have, it's a root to that. And just getting to the root of that issue is something that I feel I have a passion for, because I have a young Black teenage son that's living in Chicago, and I understand his emotions and some of his frustrations. And I'm grateful that we have a relationship where if he feels he needs to talk, we can talk. If he feels he needs some time alone, we have an open communication. Our young Black boys, a lot of them don't have that. So just to make sure that our young people, have a voice, that somebody listens to them, somebody hears them, and to get to the root of why they feel the way they feel, then, this is our next generation coming up. And these are our future leaders. And we want to make sure that they're solid, And another organization that I would love to partner with, which should be Chicago Police Department, not in just I'm talking about dealing with the training and how to deal with people and people of in our communities, in my community, that everybody that you see is not the enemy. Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Sometimes it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And I understand that there I feel like there's a disconnect in our community with the law enforcement. And I can remember, because I grew up in Inglewood, which is not the best neighborhood in Chicago, okay? And I remember some of the officers being able to walk down the street and you knew them by name. You knew the people that served at your community by name. And there's a disconnect where community policing has gone out the door. And I want to be able to bridge that gap again. But it's either for me to catch them when they're younger, or help the people that's helping service our community. So those are the two agencies that I would love to partner with, to make sure our community is whole again, overall just whole again. So we got to start putting these puzzle pieces back together, just so our community can be back tight like it used to be. And because we've suffered so much, and I just think, especially our younger people, they're very misunderstood, they're misguided, and they don't really know the definition of love. And so just to give somebody something that they don't have, when it comes to self-love and compassion, that's very important to me. It's very, very important. So yes, those two things.
So the police department, either to catch them, I guess, on the back end, or support police officers with community policing, and also how to effectively navigate, working with individuals within the community. So it's
Yes.
not oh my goodness, I'm scared of them, or my first, thought is to, oh, let me pull my gun out or something to, I guess, to end their lives forever. It's like, no, hey, this is a safe space. This is an individual who doesn't really mean any harm, and let me treat them as such, as a regular human being, not based on race or based on community. And then also working with the school system, getting them while they're still in school, the students and even the families. Because a lot of times with therapy, students might actually get the therapy support, therapeutic support while they're at school, but then they're back to that same environment. And in the home environment, they just might not get it, or they just might not know what they don't know. So they continue to do what they do. So now that student is in turmoil, like, but the therapist said, and she's trying to teach me, or he's trying to teach me this. But then in my home, they like, so
that wraparound support, not just for the student, but just to come in and, just do family sessions and let's talk to mom and find out what her traumas was. Because The traumas that you have as a child influence who you are as an adult, which influences how you raise your children and the things that you instill in them. So I think it's very important that I've learned as a therapist. And the things that I've seen as a therapist is that it's so much trauma that people have not dealt with from their childhood that seeps into their adulthood and it affects their decision making as adults. And so when we start in the home and deal with those family members that a person may be living with and what they're going through and work our way and weave our way to figure out as a family unit, how can we improve and get together and be better, communicate and grow together as a family, our family systems will be stronger. And once our family systems be stronger, then guess what? Our community systems are stronger. So it has to start with the roots, get to the root of the issues. So yeah.
Yeah, you're like, listen, we're not just playing with the branches. Like we need to get to the root so then the branches can be strong.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And how can people connect with you, Racheal?
So I do have social media. They can also email me. My email address is rfuery, Fuery, at gmail.com. And I can be reached on social media is Racheal Michelle Hale on Facebook. It's Furiously Fab on Instagram. I will be launching Golden Grace Therapy Services as another social media page because we're going to get this ball rolling. I also have a Google phone number so you can text me or call me on that number if you have any questions or if you seeking some assistance, consultations. I am available, and that number is 708-627-0699. So I'm always available for questions, consultations. I'm therapy. I'm here. I am the social worker. This is who I am. It's not just what I do. It's who I am. And when you remember whose you are and who you are, you can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong. It's just all in a day's work.
You definitely cannot. There was something else I wanted to circle back to real quick. So I know you recently did the EMDR training, which sounds like it was beneficial, but you could also see some gaps when it comes to cultural competency.
Yes. So EMDR therapy training was very intense. It was a new thing for me. And the things that I learned about tapping into your traumas was amazing, and the eye movement desensitization reprogramming is it was an amazing experience. The population that I work with have complex traumas. And so it's very difficult sometimes to navigate picking out one particular incident and focus it because it's so many. So it's very difficult sometimes to have somebody focus on one particular thing and then work through that and then bring them back and then contain it and then, scale it again because you're going to be constantly doing it. And it could be a lot on the person. So you have to pretty much tailor it to be for what is good for your patients and the thing about it is because people that I deal with their complex trauma, they're very sensitive, and they're very guarded sometimes with even discussing it. So just get into a place where people feel comfortable to talk about their traumas one at a time. That's going to be a journey, and I'm willing to take it with them. But when you're doing EMDR therapy, um, you really, really have to be conscious of not letting that one particular trauma expand because they're full of it. They're full of traumas. And so just being able to help somebody focus on one thing at a time, which also helps build them as a person. Take one step at a time, one trauma at a time. We're going to deal with one thing at a time. And, especially with the people in my community, because as Black women, we deal with multitudes of things all at once. We are genies, we are unicorns. We can handle kids, the home, work, social life, everything at once and still look good while we're doing it. But when you're breaking all that stuff down sometimes, that is the tender part of the belly because we don't a lot of times people don't want to feel. They don't want to feel because they keep themselves so busy so they don't have to. So just get into the root. Once again, going back to getting to that root of one trauma at a time when it comes to EMDR therapy will help people focus on one thing at a time. And that way, all the burdens and all the noise can sometimes be eliminated when you start working on things that way. So
One
yeah.
thing at a time, getting back to focusing on what the root is and recognizing that these are complex traumas and we can't just try to group them all into one big bunch. Like, no, let's break this down into small incremental traumas and the root
Mhm.
that's actually going on. And what would be some advice that you would share as we're closing out our interview?
Some advice that I would give is to be patient with yourself, give yourself some grace, recognize your strengths, recognize your deficits, work on them, pray, meditate. Find you someone that you can confide in. Make sure you have your own therapist. And it can be an official therapist, it can be an unofficial therapist, but make sure that you do some things to help release some of the things that we hear as social workers, as therapists, as psychiatrists, psychologists. We hear a lot, and vicarious trauma is a real thing. So it's always important to find you an outlet, and that outlet should not be stressful. Find an outlet that you could just be and relax, take a vacation. I have to tell people all the time that job is going to be there. If you need a day, a sick day, a mental health day is a sick day. You don't got to come in with no doctor note. If you want to sit on the couch and watch Ratchet TV all day, so be it. Do something every once in a while to bring you a sense of peace, because we are working. We are working for people. We are working for the betterment of people. But you got to make sure you work for the betterment of yourself. That's so important. So that's the advice that I have to give.
Work for the betterment of yourself because it starts with you, and then you can have an impact on family systems, the community systems, and all the things. So I thank you so much, Racheal, for joining me
Thank
on.
you for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
And I am Lequita Brooks, your social impact speaker and strategist. Thank you for joining us today on Social Impact Sundays at 6, where we have massive social impact that leads to massive income. And make sure you go to the socialworkmovement.com to get support or support. Until next time, have an amazing day.